I want to show you a slice. You can see it's still warm. On today's episode of the Jamaican Cooking Journey, I'll be sharing with you how to make a double batch bread. We're going to be making a double batch of bread, meaning we're going to be making bread for 2 pans. These 2 pans, they are like almost the same size, but one is a little wider. We're going to be making a double batch of bread. We're going to be using our KitchenAid mixer in this one. But let me pause right here to say special thanks to my patrons that have been making my page possible. If you would like to be a part of my Patreon family, click on the link in the description. Show me some love over on Patreon. Our post notification shout out today goes right up there. Now I've got my book. I've been making my bread recipes on my own. This is one that I've been making. I've been perfecting my recipes, my own measurements, because you know bread is just like flour, yeast, salt, a little butter, a little oil. Sometimes you had milk, sometimes you had eggs, and the list goes on. But basic bread is just flour, a little bit of sugar, a little salt, because we need a little sugar to the yeast, for the yeast to feed off, because remember the yeast is something that is living, it grows. So basically we just have to do some bread. But bread is very wide, and I'm trying to get myself into bread making, and as I go along you are requiring it, or you are requesting it, and I am trying to see if I can take you along, and let's perfect our bread making together. My recipe with this double batch of bread, and I measure my tins somewhere along in the tutorial, and I'll tell you the measurement of my tins, because you got to have perfect and accurate measurements to get beautiful solutions. So mine called for 8 cups of all-purpose flour, but baking flour, all-purpose flour. I have baking flour, and this is the brand that I'm using. And this tutorial is not by any means sponsored by this brand. I'm just showing you in Jamaica, this is what I'm using. But from time to time, you will see me be using different brands, because I'm branching out into different brands of flour and all of that, because bread goes with different types of flour, give you a different result. That's what I understand. So I'll be using different brands, but not sponsored by this brand, but I'm using it today. I've already, this is a kilo. It says 1 kilogram, which is 2.2 pounds. I've already measured out my 8 cups of flour, and it's in my bowl right here. So I think I have like about a cup and little leave when you use this 2.2 kilo. Now it calls for 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast, which is instant yeast that I am using. I've always used instant yeast. I have my yeast here in my bottle. It's on the finishing, but when I get new packs, I'll show you the brand that I've always used. But you can use your brand of yeast, because remember, you know, you have active, you have dry, instant, you know the different brand. But I've always used this instant, and this, I'll show you the brand. So you get a bottle, not a plastic, preferably a glass bottle, and you pull it from the container and you store it in the refrigerator. Some people say they're freezer, but I use my refrigerator. So 8 cups of all-purpose flour slash baking cake flour, bread flour, all-purpose baking slash bread flour. 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast, a 1/4 cup of oil of your choice. So I have my yeast inside here, and I have my flour already. This is the oil of choice that I'm using. So I'll be putting in a 1/4 cup of oil right now. A 1/4 cup of light oil, yeah, vegetable or anything of your choice right in there. Okay, 1 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and 1 1/2 tablespoons of sugar. So we are putting in the sugar. I don't want to put my salt just yet, because I don't want to put the salt directly on the yeast. So I'm going to put in 1 1/2 tablespoon of my sugar. White sugar, maybe you can put whatever. So I'm putting in that, and it's not to sweeten the bread, it's just for the yeast to, like, you know, sort of feed off it. So it says 2 cups of warm water, and I have it here, and the water must be like your baby bottle temperature, yeah, something like that. Yeah, you put it this right there, and a 1.5 tablespoon of softened butter. I've got my softened butter here, but what I want to do a bit, I want to get my little thingy here all a bit mixed in before I had my salt. So I am going to be getting my mixer all plugged in. So I'm gonna be like, you know, getting my yeast out of the way. So when I had my salt, it won't be directly on the yeast, and it is 1.5 teaspoon of my salt. So this is 1 teaspoon. One and a half teaspoon, and I like to put it and like to have it all scattered out there. That's 1, and this is the half. This is 3/4. So this is the half of a teaspoon. 1.5 teaspoon of salt. I will say the measurements for you again. Here we have 2 cups of warm water, and I'll pour it in, and I'll be pouring about 1 3/4 or a little less. I'm going to be leaving some. Also, I want you to keep back maybe 8.5 cups of flour. So I put in 8 cups, and we want you to leave, because sometimes depending on the flour, you might need a little more and all of that. So we're not ready for the softened butters yet. We're going to be putting it on the low. So we just have it on the low, and we are mixing in right now. At this point, we are not ready to add our softened butter as yet. I'll show you. So you do it on the low. It is getting everything all combined, and that is what is happening. So this is one something that I would like you to invest in. It's one of those like, I don't know, pastry mat or something like that. It enables you to work with your dough better. Also, try to see if you can get your measurements, you know, they are on the Amazon store. You can go check them out. It makes the bread making easier. Okay, you see, hence we didn't throw all of our water, so I'm gonna throw all the rest right now, and this will get everything still on the low. You're mixing it together, and we're gonna mix it until everything gets together as if you had the flour. You could do this by hand, and I'll show you. I'll leave the link for you in the description of our video that is going live for almost 600,000 views that we did by hand. So we're not using hand today, we are using our mixer today, and we have this bowl. If you forgot your bowl, you can do a double up recipe, or you can do a triple up. Because look here, when you have a family who wants to be making one bread, you know, it's a waste, I think. And also, bread making is therapeutic. After the holidays, people are always feeling down, people feeling sad. So bread making will help to lift your spirits. So you see our bread is coming together. Yes, it's coming definitely together. This is the time to break your machine, and this is 1.5 tablespoon of softened butter. You see this? Softened the butter. So I want you to use the back of your spatula, your spoon, and you want to apply this just a little at a time. Look at me. Getting right on this, Dad. You want to, it's softened. That's why you want it softened. So you want to rest it on the dough, sort of paste it on the dough. And then we are going to get our mixer back on low. And it's going to mix in that butter until when all that amount is mixed in, we are going to come back and put the rest. All mixed in. And I'm going to be putting the rest of my softened butter. Be careful, because you know the beater is moving along, so you just got to understand yourself. Okay, so we have our softened butter all in, and we are going to let it mix in some more, and then I'll come back, vamp up the speed of the mixer, and tell you what to do. Okay, so I am back, and the butter is still not properly mixed in, but I want to show you something. As it mixes in, it's forming a dough ball. But you can see at this point, at the speed at what the mixer is, it is definitely incorporating the butter on a low speed, and that is what we want. The sides of the bowl, you see the butter is there. So at this point, we want to vamp up the speed of the mixer to about medium, to start putting the pressure on the dough and to release the thing in the yeast, the gluten. So look at this. I'm gonna vamp my mixer up, and we would be about medium. So you're gonna let your dough be mixed in. Also, depending on the temperature, sometimes you may want maybe a tablespoon or more of water, or maybe not more, just a tablespoon. We're gonna mix this for about 7 to 8 minutes to form a soft dough ball. Whilst it's mixing at the 4-minute interval, if it looks like it wants, because you know the flour, every single one of the flour brands, they give different results. So you have got to understand yourself as you move into bread making. You have got to learn to teach yourself. It doesn't matter how much tutorials you watch, you will never get everything. You are going to learn as you go along because of the different textures and the nature of the flour then. You get me? So we are watching this. Come along, Dad. The flour is in mix, and we are going to leave it right there, let it mix. But I am looking at it, and I think we would take a tablespoon. You see that? Oh, it's getting all rampant all in. Dad, are you afraid? Look at that. It is working the dough as we did with our hands. You see that? Let us pause right here, and we are going to be putting a tablespoon of, remember the water must be warm to your baby bottle's temperature. Let me see this. This is 1 tablespoon of water. Oh, what is that? This is my tablespoon. Why is my tablespoon not full in? Something is wrong. 1 tablespoon. You just need a little more because it wasn't full of water. 2 that's medium, and we are gonna let it mix and work the dough. Okay, you can see that the machine is still working. I'm trying to talk over it, and it is forming a dough ball. The sides of the bowl is clean, but let me turn the machine off. This here is baking flour. I have worked with all-purpose flour, and you see that, look at this. I'm touching the dough and it's not sticking to my hand. Okay? The sides are clean, but we still want to have that straight dough ball. So, baking bread, you have to bake. You just don't get up and say, oh, me I bake bread, I can bake bread, and me name bakery, I'm Ray. No, you have to work, and as you go along, that's what I find out. You have to find all the do's and the don'ts, the pros and the cons. I did show 2 shots. I used all-purpose flour. I definitely wanted to try baking flour. This is a different brand though of baking flour. You know, I have used this brand in whole wheat, and it's beautiful. I have never used it in baking flour. I'm using it now. My hand, coming Dad, is sticking to the dough, and it's coming out clean, but it still feels a little firm to the touch. So we are gonna, you know, the all-purpose flour would have it a little looser. So it tells you that if you want a more hard-dough bread, tough bread, you use, that's what I am finding out. You use baking flour so far. So we are gonna work and we are gonna go along. Okay? So as you do your bread, what you use and what you find, you let me know. Bread flour, yes, I think I've seen bread flour, but I don't know how much or how easy it is to find here in Jamaica. I might have to go online because I plan to go all out and to explore, to experiment and all different types of flour to get what I want, okay? We're getting at the dough ball stage. You see that? We are getting at the dough ball stage. So when you see me next, I'll be on the mat. Sides of the bowl are so clean. I'm touching the dough, and look here, hello, the dough not sticking to my hand. So let's get our machine all plugged up before we, you see this. So this is the baking flour bread. At this point, I'm just gonna give it a little knead, bringing it into. You don't need any flour to put to the surface of this. Just gonna, you know, refine it a little. It's warm, relatively warm, and you are to make sure that your dough keeps warm and stays warm. Texture, not looking bad. We're gonna work on this flour and try to proof this flour. In the prior clip, I said flour. I meant dough. So this is the first proofing, which would go about an hour. If the time is not relatively warm, it would take about an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on where you are. So this is like it. We're looking 2. Remember I told you 2 bread. So you put it in here. And what you do, grease it. You grease your container, and then you wrap your dough around to get it greased. This is to enable the dough when it's finished proofing for the first, to get it easily out from the container. You could use glass. You can use plastic, you know, but make sure, say, if you have glass, you try glass. This is good. I'm gonna wipe my hand, and I'm gonna get some plastic wrap to cover it. At this point, you would want to use your hand towel or your cotton towel. You don't want to wet up your hand. It's easier to use something dry to remove grease from your hand than to use something wet. Right in, Dad? Yeah. And my countertop is cold, so I'm going to just use my little thing there and put a towel underneath my mat to make sure everything stays pretty warm. Yeah, so if the warmest place in your house, whether your garage, wherever is the warmest place, you choose to do that. All right? At this point, we're going to get it to keep the heat in there, the warmth, because without the warmth, the yeast won't rise. What we are looking for is for this after 1 to 1.5 hours. I have my stove light on, and I haven't set any temperature, you know, so you just turn your oven on, okay, depending on how warm it, just turn your oven on, just turn your oven light on, do not set any temperature, and you want to make sure that there is no hair going into this. So you use your cling wrap. If the time is relatively warm, you wouldn't have to use this. Like in the summertime, you just cover it with a clean damp towel. This is to keep the dough moist and to let some, you know, keep in there. And after an hour or about an hour and a half, depending on where you are, this dough should give us double in bulk. Let us see how this flour works. Next. I'm at about 45 to 50 minutes, fam. And wow. Ooh. This is so warm. It feels good. And you see that? As I rinse my hands, I just want to let my hands stay warm. Now I'm gonna have warm water like you guys have. So this is the first sign that tells you that, makes you feel good when you're making bread. When you see this, this is the first proofing, so it makes you feel good. And I want you to look at how the dough has transformed. You can feel it. Look at it. It's so soft. So there is a certain amount of hair that is trapped in there from the yeast now. So you want to just, you know, but normally we make a fist and you just go down right in there. Just take your time. Just go slow and go low as it deflates. When your fist comes out, it must not be sticking to it. So you know you're on point. Bread making is not, oh yes, it's easy. But I find it easy, but follow instructions. That's the key. So deflate it, and then we are gonna turn it out onto our pastry mat. Remember, I what's that thing? I greased it, and this was what the greasing was for. So this process is also releasing some of the extra gas. So at this point, yeah, you don't have to, this dough, you don't have to add any extra flour. There are some recipes for certain breads, and it is relatively hot. I had to change my top. There are certain breads that calls for softer more mushier doughs. Huh? Okay, so this is maybe more like on a hard dough. It's warm, relatively warm. And you want, as you start working with the dough, it's warm. You give it a few little in. You see that? Yeah. Move it around nice and gentle. Now, these are our pans. And I want to show you, one is, you can see that one is a little wider. So now that one is a little wider, you need to cut the dough. So this one is like, oh, from here to here would be like about, it's 5 inches in width. This one is 4.5 length. Not the right tape measure though. This is like what, Dad? This is like 11 and this is 10. One is smaller than one. So we're not gonna cut the dough in we're not gonna cut the dough in 2 halves. We're gonna cut it one a little bigger than one. This is not the proper tool. I'll find my proper tool in due season. So a scale here at this point would be okay, but my scale is out of batteries. So you're writing on it, Dad. I'm gonna be cutting like that, okay? So I'm gonna be cutting. This would be for the smaller one, and this would be for the bigger one. And I want you to look at your dough as you cut your dough. You need a dough cutter or a pastry knife. See what it looks like? Yeah, so we're gonna form it into a ball. A little extra kneading. And we can put this back in here and put the plastic. We don't want it drying out over it until we are ready to do this one. I'll show you how I do one, and then the next one is just gonna be the same treatment. Right? So gonna put it out there. We're gonna get it into like a rectangle, and I always like to have it use my pan as a guide. This is still getting out some of the extra here are the extra gas from the grease. So here I'm trying, if you want to roll, you can roll, but it's up to you. You're trying to get a rectangle. So, you know, 2 long side, 2 short side, and use your pan as the guide. You don't want it too thick in some parts, and some part it's not as thick. You want to even it out. Yeah. But if you want to use your rolling pin, you can go along. See, in here is a little puffy. We don't want it like that. We try, you know, scattering it out, getting it into more like a rectangle. We're almost there, so you can just flip it. And this is what the pastry mat does. It makes it, doesn't stick, making your life very easy. And these are available on my Amazon storefront. You can choose your color of choice. Yeah. We are going to be rolling up right now. Very firm, very tight. Yeah. Still warm, nice and warm. And you, as you go along, you keep your dough in shape. You know, this is just about up to you. It not have no specifics. It no need no degree. It's just, it's a dough. So you can play around with it. Why not? Why we can't play with it? If some part look a little bigger than some, it's a dough. You move it down. You fix it up. Remember to where you seal it. Remember to pinch it. That's how you seal it. You pinch it and seal it. You don't need any egg wash. Like that. And the pinch side, seal side, you're going to turn it down. Shape it out. Get it a little out. Here is a little fatter. I can go bigger than the other side. Come on. So you just move it out. This is a dough. Take your time. It is your bread. And as you go along, you learn. You learn, family. Okay? You still go along and you learn. You lift it gently. Put it into your pan. And whilst it's still in your pan, you can still fix him up. Nice and dandy, cute and pretty. And your name is Pretty Gold from the Jamaican cooking journey. Right, Dad? It is going to rise because we're going to proof it a second time. And it will take the shape of the pan. Let's put our wrapper on because you have got to cover it to keep the moisture in. When we're ready to bake, we are going to be proofing again. Okay? Don't mind, that's why we use the cling wrap. It won't, we can just peel it off easily. Let's put it there. And this next patient right here, I don't have to show you. It will be the same treatment. So we are ready for our second proofing. You notice this one is starting to rise already. We're going to do this for about 30 to 45 minutes. 30 to 45 minutes. It's really warm in my kitchen. So, you know it go. The warmer, the better. The faster. So we're going to put it back in our oven because of the, you know. And 30 to 45 minutes time we'll return. Remove them from the oven. Preheat our oven. And then we're going to be baking. So after 45 minutes, this is what my bread, remember one is bigger than one. So this is how my breads are looking. Now I've preheated my oven to 400 degrees. It is not yet preheated. So when it is preheated, I'll come back, remove the plastic. It is on top of the stove now, so my stove temperature is set. So it should be still keeping warm. So I'll be putting them in for 30 to 35 minutes at 400 degrees. I'll be removing, make sure you remove the plastic. When my breads are out, I'll come back. So my breads are out. Give them an overall look, Dad. Remember one was bigger than one. So this one came up. You know the norm to the middle and everything. I went for 400 degrees at 30 minutes. There's 8 minutes leaving on my timer. So it tells you that I was finished in 22 minutes. Okay? I'm going to remove them to a wire rack and leave them to cool for about 2 to 3 minutes. You don't want to keep them in the pan too long or the bottom will get saggy. I'll catch you then. Some sort of firm butter whilst on the cooling down. Oops. You just want to make sure you grease the top. That is to get it softened and to keep soft. It's still warm, so you do the top right there with some butter. This is real butter. So I realize that when you're getting into bread making, that's what I'm learning at this point. You do butter, especially for the Jamaicans that we can't get butter so easy. You do butter as opposed to margarine right there. We are making a mess. So yeah, we are putting on some sheen. That is to let the top of the bread be soft and to make it all nice and dandy. So as it goes on, it melts. Yeah, holding it at the top there. You don't have to do the sides, just the top. Bread is baked. Be quick. Learn to handle yourself. You don't want it staying at the pan until the bottom gets saggy. Wow. There it goes. Look at your pan. Beautiful. Next patient, same treatment, but this is a bigger boy, so you got to approach it with more caution. It's not supposed to stay in the pan too long as it will get soggy. Let them cool down until they're ready to cut. Two beautiful hard-dough bread. Next clip. So my breads are still really warm, but I just want to end the tutorial and I want to cut the smaller one. I want to show you a slice. You can see it's still warm. You see this? This is a different, even though it's soft because it's still not cooled as yet. This is a different texture. You see that? From the all-purpose flour. Do you see that? When this is cooled, it's gonna be a more compact, more of a hard dough. So in other words, it's safe to say that the baking flour gives us hard dough bread, as opposed to the all-purpose flour, it gives us a more sandwich bread. This is what I find. I am doing my very own thing, and as I go, I am making my little notes and all of that. This is how you perfect what you like. This is what I like to do. So I'm looking at it, and that it's quite evident right here. Yeah. This is still warm. This is not giving a sandwich bread look at all, is it? It's giving a different, you see that? And it's not cooled as yet. So when it cools down, it is gonna give you a more tighter bread. If you like this tutorial, remember to give me a big fat thumbs up. Remember to make sure that you're subscribed. If you want to learn to make your own bread, remember to check out our Patreon page. Some of these videos, they will all not be uploaded on YouTube. Some will be uploaded on my Patreon page. I am perfecting my bread making, and I've shared this with you. Remember to like, share, subscribe. Leave me a comment below, and look here, start making your own bread. Thanks for watching.